the panel discussion, I would like to call on stage the Chairman, Information and Communication Technology Agency of Sri Lanka, ITCA, Professor Malik Ranasinghe. Independent Director, Sri Lankan Insurance Corporation, Mr. Kitsiri Manchanayak. Director, PW Sri Lanka, Ms. Ruini Fernando. Professor of Information Systems and Operations Management, University of Waterloo, Canada, Dr. Ken McKay will be joining us through a video recording. Sales Director, Mr. Anup MR from SAP. Over to you, Mr. Herath.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all the panelists for joining today this discussion. We have carefully selected the panel. Maybe I need to give a rationale for this panel as well. Professor Malik Ranasinghe has a technology background, has chaired boards and is currently on boards, and is also chairman of ICTA as at present. And so we thought he can definitely share a lot of thoughts around some of the findings that we have. Mr. Kitsiri Manchanayak is also the public sector. We thought we must have someone from public sector. He serves on public sector boards. So he's there to share some thoughts around the public sector. And Ruini is an independent non-executive director in few boards and has a background of industrial sector. So we thought she's good. And then also Anup is representing SAP and will share thoughts from a IT solutions provider. So that's the panel we have. We really wanted to get someone from the expert panel to come if possible. Unfortunately, that's not possible because two of our expert panel members are in Canada and then one in India. And ultimately, connectivity also we thought might be an issue. So I'll start the panel discussion with some thoughts that will come from one of our expert panelists who will share his thoughts. We specifically briefed him on sort of what's going to happen today. And he has sent a video recording. That's a 3.5-minute video clip. And we'll use some of his inputs as well for our discussion. So can we have the video clip played first?
Currently, it's minus 10 degrees Celsius with a wind chill factor of minus 17 Celsius. I suspect you folks are not experiencing the same weather I am. Just over a year ago, Arjuna contacted us about using Professor Drewer's survey that she prepared for her thesis. At the time, her thesis was the first work to really probe the nuances of what board members knew or did not know with regard to IT governance. The three of us are professors at different universities, but we are odd professors. We have over probably 100 years of experience with IT governance in one way or another. We have also been chairs, board members, senior executives, CTOs in different lives, different things that we have done in the past. We have also have many decades of experience doing surveys and analyzing the results. I am not the world's expert on IT governance, but Professor Drewer is. It was a pleasure to work with her again on this topic. This is an important undertaking, and the research team gladly volunteered to work with EY Sri Lanka and SLID to do the project. Together as a team, we restructured and extended the survey for the Sri Lanka context, working with EY Group out of India, GDS on data analysis, and with EY Sri Lanka on the final report. 2 items for reflection. It would be that higher IT competence led to better ITG and in turn to higher organizational performance. This is important. Better ITG hits the bottom line. Our findings also suggest having the right CIO, CDO was a very impactful variable, perhaps the most. There are additional reflections. Either through board membership or through a special advisory committee, it is important to have the right mix of experience and expertise. It matters if you're doing development. It matters if you're using IT for a key enterprise solution. It matters if IT is part of your service or product. You need this level of expertise. You need to know the past, present, and future knowledge of the IT and the relevance within that sector. It's important to set up the right training, education, mentorship, communities of practice, and digital tourism on the board to achieve this. In alignment with the previous Canadian survey, a similar proportion of best practice boards exist in Sri Lanka as well. This is a good sign. We also noted, though, that a number of respondents noted a lack of effective ITG. In today's world, this is worrisome to the panel. What are our summary thoughts? We believe it's important to cultivate and develop a core group of digital savvy board members. This should be considered by all of the boards. This is not just training sessions, but this is focused activity, focused work that will yield high value returns. We think that the best in Sri Lanka can be leveraged, and they can act as learning incubators and exemplars to others. We like communities of practice where people help each other. You don't have to compete against each other locally. You can help each other, and that is important. We have enjoyed working with the Institute and EY Sri Lanka and GDS. We think that the Institute is an excellent starting point for the development of these skills and expertise, the ones needed for effective ITG. We wish you the best on this journey, and we look forward to further collaboration and participation. Thank you.
Great. So that was Professor Ken. So the three professors were very actively involved with us. And I must say that enabled us to benchmark our findings and our sort of insights as were coming out and validate against the global scenario. Jennifer Jewell, as you heard, did a similar study across the globe. So the findings are compatible. In fact, they are doing additional research now based on the Sri Lankan study. They are updating the research report that they have done globally. So great. So how I want to run this panel today is that we will have 2 or 3 questions max to the panelists, and then we'll open out for questions from the audience for any one of the panelists or to me, so that we have the opportunity to interact with the audience as well. So to start with, I'll start with Professor Malik Ranasinghe. So Professor, you realized that in the study, clearly we saw 3 industries having a lead in board IT governance over the rest of the industries. And we really didn't go to find out what the causes for those were, but we were trying to allude to possibly why some of these are in the leading category as opposed to the other industries. So my question to you is, do you see this as a valid observation? And what are your assessments around this finding for the future of the corporate sector in Sri Lanka?
Thank you very much for inviting me to the panel. I did try to get myself out of it, but Faisal didn't give me much room to it. He insisted that I should be here. It's an interesting question because if I think back, in 2017, Sampath started the IT committee for the board committee. I think we were the first to start. It had nothing to do with IT governance. We found that our budget for IT was so big, and we had approved it. As the board, we had approved it as the budget. And periodically or regularly, we were getting big ticket items coming to board for approval after the procurement process. Suddenly, we said, no, this is not all. And we asked, where did we approve this? Only to realize, and those who are in the banking boards would know, typically the budget approval, you start with the core.
Professor Malik, there is a mic for you.
The core things. You start talking about the revenue, the costs, and all of that. And by the time you come to IT, the board is petty, and you just approve it. And then the IT people go on that and said the board has approved, and you go through the procurement process. Then you ask the procurement guys, why did you do this? They said, we don't know. The board has approved. Now we are doing the procurement. We don't know anything about the IT part. So we decided, and that time, unfortunately, fortunately, I was the deputy chairman, so I was asked to chair this board. And we first started looking at it in the context of time and the business, at that time. Were these investments really needed? it was coming after a good year in 2016. 2017 was not going to be a good year, so we were concerned. And took a step back, and so the first committee looked at more on what I would call IT management, not on IT governance, more on the operational issues. We looked at it, and if I remember correctly, about, I think Sudarshan might remember, but half the budget was stopped or said, it's too much. And then that became a practice where you had to make a case. I think Arosh is here, still continuing in that board, where questions are asked and a lot of things happen. Then as we went on, we realized that that is one thing, but we have to look at more on the value, the issue that you raised. We also realized that the IT committee we had didn't have enough of that IT experience. Sometimes we had a very good CIO at that time, or still have. Or Sampath say, we have in Sampath, I'm no longer there. So I can afford to talk freely about what they did. And that's the point at which we invited Dr. Sanjay Veeravan. We realized we needed a real IT guy to come and chair this. So we had to look at it not just in terms of do we need it, but is it really creating the value, or can it really create the value? And he could give insights with his experience, especially with the international work he was doing, saying this is a good idea to go in. I am also fortunate, so that's the banking side. And then, of course, the banking regulation came, and that's why you see this. And it's a no-brainer. It's obvious that the central bank requirements make sure that you have all the necessary regulatory frameworks and say the banks have to follow. I also happen to sit on a few boards that are technology-based. They are the focus in most of them is to get the ERP. Everybody wants the ERP. So you've invested money, and I think like your company, they all come into the consultancy and advise us to buy the best thing, and the boards buy. But none of the boards have really thought whether the impact, the value is there. So we now, 3-4 years down the road, we start asking that question. Except for one company which has realized and did a review on our own and realized what to do. Others are still on the purchase mode, making sure that it's working, even after 3 years. But I think the important thing is, at the end of the day, boards have to become, it's not just the investment, but we have to look further. As was correctly identified in the survey, the strategic part becomes very important. And I don't think that's easy for the boards to think. It's because most of the board members are not young and savvy with the IT as they should be. Most of our people are still very much in the 40s, 50s, 60s range, where IT is still not that easy to grasp and make sure. So it's going to be an effort for most of the board members to make sure that you have understood that. It is not just the investment, but is there an impact? Are you getting the things that you thought about, the value that you thought about, really are you getting it? And that's going to be the challenge. And since there is no regulation like in the banking sector, it will take a while before there'll be good governance. So it's obvious why the banking and the technology sectors are doing well. But even then, I think, except for the banking and finance sector, others haven't come to that level that you would like to be.
Sure. Yeah? Thank you, Professor Malik. No, great. Thank you. So I don't mind coming to Dr. Kinsiri Manchanayake now, taking a cue from him. Just asking you this recommendation we have on the report, 2 to 3 board members to be on boards to bring about, because he said in Sampath Bank they brought one IT director to look at IT. So my question is that sufficient? And what would be your thoughts around, about knowledge, experience, competence required at board level to bring about better board IT governance? And I'll come to Anup about his value creation from technology, because a lot of boards sometimes have this perception, are we getting right value from the technology?